Hey guys, well, I've decided as I'm able to, I'm also going to start in the beginning of this book. Something just jumps out at me. I've read one story from here before. It's called Real Ghosts, Restless Spirits, and Haunted Places by Brad Steiger. And I'm going to start reading these to you because I love ghost stories. So that, and there's some really interesting stuff in here. I got to read about a possession the other day and stuff. I don't know, I just want to start sharing with you guys. Alright, it says introduction here. It says the real reasons we all love ghost stories. Whenever our family gathers for holiday, eventually, usually late at night, talk turns to stories about haunted house that we acquired in the summer of 1973. Although they are now in their 40s and late 30s, my 4 children have deep-seated memories of the occasionally nasty ghosts that tried to drive us out from the old farmhouse. We should have been forewarned about the haunting when a relative of the previous owner said that we had purchased the perfect home for a peculiar fellow like me, always chasing around the country looking for spooks. He laughed that I wouldn't have to leave the house to find a ghost. The problem between our family and the ghosts began after we had modernized the house with the indoor plumbing, modern toilets, and a variety of electrical appliances in preparation for the winter months. When I was home alone one morning, I heard a series of mysterious thuds, thumps, and bumps sounding throughout the house. When I ran up to the attic to investigate, the thunderous sounds would move to the basement. This process was repeated a number of times until I grew tired of running up and down 3 flights of stairs and simply decided to ignore the manifestations. Brian, the oldest boy in our family, was treated to a similar performance a few nights later when knocking on the front door distracted him from his homework. Since he was home alone, he went to answer the door and was surprised to find no one there. Then a series of knocks summoned him to the back door. After playing a game of tag between the front and back doors, the disturbance finally sounded on both sides of the doors and all the downstairs windows at the same time. The absence of footprints and the freshly fallen snow proved that no human tricksters were playing a prank on him. Steve and our youngest son began to dread coming home after he left his after-school job because of the manifestations in his room, especially the rocking chair that would creak back and forth until nearly dawn. Carrie, our eldest girl, heard her name being called in whispery voices that came from the attic. The children's mother often found herself locked out of the house when she stepped outside, and once she awakened to find herself being held down in the bed by a ghost of an old man. Julie, the youngest family member, became the victim of a bizarre facet of the haunting that would wait until she came home from school. Facet. I read that wrong. Alright. Was alone in the house before it began to torment her. The commingled sounds of voices and eerie music would grow louder and louder until she would be driven out of the house to seek refuge at a neighbor's home. I had grown up in a house with paranormal manifestations and had seen my first ghost when I was about 4 years old, but these entities in my old homestead were relatively quiet and most certainly benign. My first articles on paranormal appeared in 1957. My first book, Ghosts, Ghouls, and Other Peculiar People, was published in 1965, so when we moved into the haunted house in 1973, I experienced a wide variety of ghostly phenomena. Once, I so angered a spirit that it smashed down a door and hoisted my fellow researchers and me in the air. By that time, my family and I were experiencing regular encounters with unforeseen forces in our home, which was something quite different from ghost hunting in someone else's domicile. For months, we underwent a supernatural barrage of phenomena, including mysterious lights appearing both inside and outside the house, footsteps moving up and down the stairs, and noisy repertoire of assorted poundings, drummings, and tappings. Eventually, the phenomena seemed to grow more accustomed to our presence, or it wore itself out to a degree where coexistence with us became possible. Interestingly, about 4 years ago, Julie summarized that time as compromising some of the most horrible days of her life. Most recently, she has been able to find positive aspects of the eerie ordeal. Although it may have been totally terrifying at times, we did experience proof that there really is something within us that survives physical death, she said. Her frightening experience provides Julie with the rationale behind every ghost story that has ever been told. To experience haunting or to see a ghost. Is it to receive proof that life goes on beyond the grave? Accounts of haunting phenomena, no matter how terrifying they may be, provide evidence that existence continues for the spirit on more than one dimension, and that the human beings are multidimensional entities that consist of mind, body, and soul. My colleague Brian A. Schill of American Society for Paranormal Research and Investigation, 4661 Donovan Street, Orlando, Florida, 32808, Aspirusa, which is ASPIRUSA at AOL.com, has written a book entitled The DNA of Ghosts that explains the afterlife existence of the ghost within us in scientific terms. Schill points out every living being has a bioelectric cycle that functions at 60 hertz. This cycle, he says, enables our hearts, brains, and central nervous system to function and communicate within the organism itself, examining that medical truth within the context, of the first law of thermodynamics. I think I say that. Pardon me. Which states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transformed. We are able to recognize that 2/3 of our life experience exists within our intangible mind and spirit, life force, soul, etc., while the third part is made up of our physical body. If 2/3 of our total existence is in the form of intangible energy, what happens to the energy when we die? That's a good question. Stop there for a second. That's something, because people argue what we're seeing in science and energy, or, people, with religious beliefs, even there's heaven, there's hell, or there's nothing, or, with all these different religious walks and paths. That's something I've thought about, is entities, are they just bad energy built up in a place of, bad memories, bad times, stressful times, and that energy just won't let go of that place. It's ingrained into it. That's something I've questioned. I'm like, is it energy or is it really a spirit? I question it, even though I've been seeing things since I was 9 years old. I still question things, and I still see things on occasion, and I've even had a spirit or an energy or entity, what would you ever like to call it, this past fall. She appeared twice in my home, a brunette lady. I could probably still ID her if I seen her. And she followed me all the way to Alabama, to where I was visiting, and was in that home with me for a brief moment. I don't know if she was attached to me, her energy, or if she was trying to tell me something, but I did have a visitor that followed me. So let's continue back to the story. I just wanted to share that with everyone because I think that's a very plausible, it's a very food for thought thing. Excuse me. I'm gonna drink this water. Excuse me. All right. With permission, I quote from Schill. When a person dies, the bioelectric energy is released from the body into the local environment where it may perform one of two actions. The unconscious energy, I can't talk today. The unconscious energy may dissipate into the local environment, and there will essentially be no manifestation thereafter, or it may, through covalent bonding, remain in the local environment and attach itself to a certain place or object that the person was attached to in life, or any place that has an electron deficit. This is a theory behind repeat hauntings. The energy may, upon rapid release from physical bodies such as an accidental death, tragic situations, or rapid natural release, etc., coagulate within the local environment over a short period of time, maybe only a couple of minutes or so, and amass to such a degree that the greater portion that was originally in the body has now become self-aware outside of the body. Psychological forces of conscience may also trigger this type of reaction. When self-awareness occurs, there is generally a degree of confusion because of the new form that the person is in. One of the pure energy, rather a physical manifested body. Over many years, cases and investigations, observers have documented the hauntings often have several striking similarities that cannot be ignored. The first of these similarities is that there are low-level electromagnetic field disruptions. These disruptions generally fall between 3 to 100 milligram. The cause of these disruptions is the intangible biomagnetic field that makes up a ghost. This disruptive field would also explain why electronic devices malfunction on occasion. The second similarity that has been documented is that the air temperature often drops between 10 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Temperature drops are thought to be due to unintentional attraction and condensation of free electrons in the environment. The condensing of an energy field leaves a momentary void of heat in an area. The third similarity is found in the infrared spectrum just below the level of visible light. This level of electromagnetic spectrum seems to be where the greatest number of manifestations take place, because infrared light borders on the lower portion of the spectrum of visible light, red, orange, yellow. This could possibly explain why glimpses of entities are seen with the peripheral portion of the eye instead of within the direct line of sight. Manifestations seen with peripheral vision also attract the attention of unburdened subconscious rather than our conscious mind, which bears the fears of social restriction and repression. When we experience something that is out of the ordinary because of ghost placement on the electromagnetic spectrum, this may explain why cameras are able to photograph them, recorders are able to pick up their voices, and so on. If we wish to discuss the subject of ghosts thoroughly, we must also include near-death experiences, astral projections, poltergeists, appearances of human doubles, manifestations of religious figures, the mystery of spirit possession, the process of mediumship and phenomena of glowing orbs, and the controversial matter of animal spirits. Each of these non-physical phenomena comprises an intriguing facet of human experience that may one day help us define the farthermost reaches of the soul. After researching the paranormal for more than 50 years, I spend little time these days theorizing about what ghosts may be. I accept the reality that within each of us is a spiritual essence that is imperishable and eternal. I completely accept the existence of spirit phenomena, and I contend that it is extremely multifaceted. Where I believe it may be difficult to separate ghostly manifestations into definitions of type and purpose that are truly distinct from one another, I submit the real ghost and the restless spirits often fit into the following categories. 1. Spirit residue. If the strange noises you hear in your home are due to a squirrel in the attic, clanging water pipes, or an overactive imagination, then they are probably caused by what I term spirit residue. I have found that a large number of structural hauntings are caused by a residential presence of spirits. In these cases, a powerful human emotion, fear, jealousy, hate, pain, has somehow been impressed into the environment. It is my contention that the sounds and sights of the haunting may be perceived by the psyche of a sensitive individual as if they were images on a strip of a motion picture film that keeps being fed through a projector again and again. The participants of these kinds of hauntings cannot interact with the ghost any more than one can interact with the images on the motion picture or television screen. Ghosts that have been seen by many witnesses over many years may literally begin to take on a kind of independent existence, much like psychic marionettes responding to the fears and expectations of their human audience. That's something, like, I read this the other day, just randomly read about the spirit residue. And when I read about the spirit residue, I thought about the things that I've come in contact with and the things that I've seen. And none of them have repeated themselves. But I think about that energy about being pressed in. Because, I mean, okay, there's Hollywood and then there's truth. I'm not a ghost hunter. Am I interested in, another plane of existence, that there might be something else, or our energy gets trapped here? But, like, Hollywood and a lot of movies, there was a point I was going to make, and it was about the spiritual residue. Okay, they say in some of these movies that the most vulnerable person in the home, the sickest, or the most, the person who has the most mental problems, is the one that the spirit, the entity, or the energy will prey on is the weakest. Well, if they're bad or, demonic, whatever, how you like to title it. Like I said, there's different, realms of perception here. Well, that's the thing. I've been seeing things since I was 9, seeing them in my home, outside of my home. And I've only been scared like a few times. I actually had fear of what I was seeing. So if that's the case, like a lot of people will be like, well, it's a mental illness, or they have multiple personalities, or this, that, and the other. Unless you know this person and you've been with them day in, day out, or studied the case, or there is proof laying in front of you, then who are you to say that they did not see that? Because there's people that are stable that see these things, these imprints of this projector that's playing over and over, or the voices they hear, or the smells, or the sounds, or there's a reason that it's probably there. So that's something I've wondered about. The place where I see the things the most, I've wondered if that's what it is spirit residue. It's because there has been a lot of trauma in the place where I see the most things. And there's been trauma around the area. So it makes you wonder, what if? So let's continue. Number 2, spirits of the dead. For many years, I stubbornly and dogmatically held to the hypothesis that all ghosts are the products of psychic residue. I strictly separate evidence of the spirit's survival after death from accounts of ghosts. However, as my own site investigations increased in number, I encountered spirit manifestations that clearly seemed to be the result of identifiable intelligence that wished to communicate messages from the other side to loved ones or interested parties. Other haunting phenomena appeared to be caused by earthbound spirits of deceased humans that were unable to detach themselves from the people, places, and things of the physical world, and had not progressed to the light of a higher dimension. So that's something I've questioned, is why are they here? What are they? Because the woman that followed me to Alabama, I feel like she was trying to tell me something, warn me. She never spoke. She would just stand there and look at me, and I just like, you need help, but she would never speak to me. We would make contact with each other, and then for brief seconds, and then she would be gone. And I haven't seen her since fall of 2020. I have not seen her. So let's continue. Number 3, poltergeist. In common parlance, any violent and disruptive haunting is said to be caused by poltergeists. Entities that toss objects about the room. In the view of many physical researchers, such phenomena is born not in the psyche of a dead being, but rather in a living being who is undergoing some kind of stress, psychic upheaval, or severe and dramatic psychological adjustment. Such an individual, most often an adolescent, expresses unconscious aggression toward others through dramatic manifestations of psychokinetic power, mind over matter, such as overturning of furniture and the propelling of objects through the room. In some cases, I have investigated poltergeist phenomena and have interacted with haunting manifestations that are existed in the home, thereby producing intensely negative, disruptive energy. So keep that stuff out of your life. It might draw in bad energy. If there's bad energy there, it's like opening a rift into another plane of existence. You're welcoming it by putting up with that toxicity, so to speak, would be the way I would view that. Number 4, spirit parasites. I used to be as dogmatically opposed to the concept of demonic possession as any modern investigator is supposed to be. Many years of research and encounters with entities that are unabashedly evil have convinced me that homes in which murders or other violent physical deeds have been committed may become repositories for non-physical leeches of the soul that I prefer to call spirit parasites. These beings are hideous and grotesque in appearance, often manifesting as reptilian-like entities. When humans make themselves physically and spiritually vulnerable through drug and alcohol abuse, promiscuous sex, and other excess of physical body, they may not be aware of spirit parasites in their presence that are capable of possessing and manipulating them. 5. Spirit masqueraders. In my opinion, some appearances of ghosts and spirits have nothing to do with physical residue, psychokinetic explosions of human psyche undergoing stress, or survival of the spirit after death. I believe these... Oh, God, that's a mouthful. I can't say it. Hauntings to be machinations of another order of beings that in the past we called fairies, elves, or nature spirits. In contemporary times, they may represent themselves as extraterrestrial visitors, but these entities have interacted with humans for centuries by abducting humans, making mysterious circles and crops, and deceiving humankind about the truth of who they really are. These beings are more non-physical than they are physical. Indeed, they may be paraphysical interlopers, I think that's how you say that, from other dimensions. They are in-between beings posing from time to time as ordinary humans, disguising the fact that they are really phantoms, creatures that have materialized from some haunted dominion unknown to us. In some benign instances, they may be angels in disguise that have come to give comfort, aid, and inspiration. In some of the more frightening cases, they may be fallen angels that aim to deceive, lie, and enslave. Theoretical physicists now speak freely about parallel universes. Perhaps, from time to time, these entities intrude into our world from a universe that may almost be a mirror image of our own, or perhaps, as the ancient philosophers suggested long ago, the appearance of spirits is evidence that we're part of a larger community of intelligences, a complex hierarchy of powers and participalities of a universe of interrelated species, both physical and non-physical. And now I invite you to follow me as we explore the many dark and shadowed pathways that lead us to encounter real ghosts, restless spirits, and haunted places. So, food for thought, all that good stuff. So, feel free to message me. I'm on Instagram and Facebook if you'd like to talk about these things. Look forward to hearing from you, and I'm going to try to start, might not be very consistent, but here and there when I got time, I'm going to start reading this book here to you guys. Real Ghosts, Restless Spirits, and Haunted Places. I read another one in here. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was a funny short story. See if I can find it. It was a funny one I read back in the fall. Something about a lumberjack and a bunkhouse that I read, and it's in my YouTube if you want to scroll down and read. Well, listen to it. It's a good one. So, all right, guys. I look forward to talking to the paranormal about you in tarot readings. Just give me a message. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.